Hi, I'm Robert Carmichael, and today I'm going to be presenting my theory on democratic research note. It's basically like a short podcast. It's going to break down the theory. Exactly why do nations that are both democracies tend not to go to war with each other? When we look to the reasons for this, some vary. The first one is like culpability for our leaders. They tend to take responsibility when things go wrong, and they will face backlash if and when the war doesn't go good. So that's probably one of the first reasons why we tend not to see democracies go into war with each other. The second is basically the threat level from other democracies. Nations that are democracies tend not to see other nations as democracies as a threat. Basically, one of the reasons is that the freedom thought. We basically view like, well, they're a democracy. They have the same freedoms we do, and you tend to believe that they're a freer society. So that might be another reason why we tend not to see war between democracies. Another reason also is capitalism can be thought of as one as a free society with free market. Wealthier nations tend to have less reason to go to war with each other, and when there is a conflict, possibly trade, our politicians and our statesmen tend to be able to negotiate the process through like state departments to avoid war. So when examining some of these aspects of democracies and whether or not they tend to go to war with each other, it leads us to the question, or possibly the hypothesis: do democracies tend to form alliances more frequently with other democracies than, say, other types of civilizations or governments? So that's the question that we're going to examine. In order to test this hypothesis, we used what was called the freedom map in our testing. It basically broke down nations into four categories, and it was basically the non-democracies and democracies, and to see if they would form alliances more frequently. After we would use the freedom map and tabulate our results, we would put the results into the chi-square and come up with the results and see if there's a pattern forming. When we got the results, it tended to lean towards basically that democracies and other democracies were not necessarily true to be more likely to form alliances. It actually found that it didn't have to be mutually exclusive that both nations had to be democracies. But it did find that there was a higher rate between loyalty of democracies than non-democracies. So while we didn't exactly find that there was an overarching pattern, or there was a pattern that democracies tended to be loyalty to each other, it wasn't mutually exclusive, like I said earlier, for them to necessarily be allies. Uh, Compared to other nations that are non-democracies. So it's kind of interesting results, and hopefully we can dive into that further and find out exactly what is going on. What are some of the underlying causes of why we're seeing the results we're seeing when it comes to whether they're democracies or not, dependent upon maybe nations are forming into democracies. I'd kind of like to take a deeper look into that. But overall, you find that democracies do tend to support other democracies. But mutually exclusive as allies with non-democracies, I just don't think that that's quite there. But they do tend to be loyalty to each other and not go to war. So there's a pattern, especially shown in our mathematical results. So this is my democratic peace research note. Thank you.